Welcome to the Collecting Insight podcast. I'm Lori.
And I'm Sarah.
And we're here to share our exploration into being human.
Inspired by coffee meetups, we dive into topics that confound, mystify, and inspire us, leading to a space where we can better understand and enjoy this precious life.
Our perspectives are definitely distinct, but it's the intersection between them that our most amazing conversations and insights erupt.
We are so excited you're here. Let's get started. Hello, Lori.
Hi, Sarah.
How are you?
I'm good.
We are super excited to welcome with us today Beatriz Victoria Albina, who allows us in such a beautiful way to call you Bea. It's beautiful. So thank you for that. And Bea was recommended to us by someone who felt that she would add great value to our podcast. And we are so excited to get to know you, Bea, and learn alongside our listeners today. And Bea is a family nurse practitioner, a somatic life coach. She is an author of an upcoming book, and Emotional Outsourcing, a guide to overcoming codependent, perfectionist, and people-pleasing habits. That has certainly been a topic of conversation in the past, Lori, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Bea's book is out around September 30th. So definitely check that out. Bea is also the host of the Feminist Wellness podcast and has appeared in Goop, Greatest, Cosmopolitan, The Wall Street Journal, and she has innumerable credentials behind her, including a master's of public health. But I loved what she refers to as her most important credential. And I am going to read it because it was so powerful to me. And she said, "I know what it's like to live in a body that feels like it's running away without me. I know what it's like to ruminate endlessly about a decision because I don't trust myself to get it right. I know what it's like to crash from burnout, swear I'll do things differently, and then fall back into the same cycle of overdoing and overextending. And I know what it takes to break free, not just intellectually, but at the level of your nervous system, your habits, your bones." Welcome, Bea. That's incredible.
Ooh, thank you for all of that.
Oh my gosh, we're so excited to have you. And I thought that sort of given that piece, we would love to sort of start off understanding, because it certainly sounds like the work that you're doing today is endemic of a struggle that you sort of had throughout your life. And I would love to hear about your upbringing and any pivotal moments that sort of brought you to this place of expertise, talent, and sharing with the world.
Yeah. I think where I'll actually start is in clinic. So, as you shared, I'm a UCSF trained family nurse practitioner, and my work has always been very holistic, functional medicine in the genetics and evidence-based labs, not the snake oil side of life. Unfortunately, these Maha days, we have to say that out loud. Yay, science. And I kept noticing in my patients this pattern I saw in myself of having all these tummy troubles, energy troubles, thyroid issues, depression, anxiety, all these issues and concerns that seem so chronic and so intractable. And we do really good work, find the etiology, the root cause, improve the things, and they'd get better. And they'd feel better, and things would be better. And then they'd have a breakup, or they'd visit their parents, or they'd get a promotion or lose a job. Something psychosocial would happen that would dysregulate something in their lives. And all of the sudden, boom, the same tummy ache, the same digestive issues, the same fatigue, the same anxiety, right? All the symptoms that we thought we had dealt with, right, cured and healed, would come roaring back. And I'm a nerd's nerd. I love to nerd. It's my preferred pastime, and I am blessed with, and I feel a little self-conscious bragging so early in the call, but I do have ADHD. And so I know, bragging so early. I'm from Rhode Island and I have ADHD. Two of my biggest brags. So I'm glad we got those out of the way early. You know
Oh,
what
I
I
love
mean?
it.
'Cause people feel bad about themselves. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, you get it. But you both have links to Rhode Island. And so I see patterns, right? My brain's a pattern making machine. And I started to really notice these underlying nervous system dysregulation and the undercurrents of codependent, perfectionist, and people-pleasing thinking that were underlying whatever was organically and physiologically happening in my patients. And I started to see that while I love clinical medicine, the root cause medicine I truly want to practice and feel called to practice in this life is really supporting people to see the ways that their nervous system, their autonomic nervous system with their enteric nervous system, and the patterns from their own upbringing are really keeping them, and were keeping me, and are keeping so many of us mired in ways of living that just aren't serving us, aren't serving our right, aren't allowing us to live lives that we actually want to be living. And I think life is here to be lived, right?
Totally agree.
Yeah.
It's almost like we have mind, body, and soul, and you can't just treat just one of them, is what you're saying. You can't just treat the
Almost like
body.
that. Yeah.
Almost like that, right?
Almost like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question for myself and maybe listeners, but definitely for myself. Can you explain nervous system dysregulation in
I thought
a
you'd
Sarah
never
Byers
ask.
way? Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
be thrilled to. I love to nerd. So the nervous system is the body's command center, coordinating everything we think, feel, and do through a complex network that includes the brain, the spinal cord, and nerves that reach out from the center throughout the body. It manages essential functions, heartbeat, digestion, but it also governs our emotions, our behaviors, and most importantly, how safe or unsafe we feel in the world. And that's a binary we'll come back to in a moment. So, our autonomic or automatic nervous system is constantly scanning everything in the world for cues of safety or threat. And our nervous system reacts to both real and perceived dangers. And that's important, perceived dangers formed through behavior patterns based on our past experience. Do you want me to keep nerding in this regard? Because
No, I kind of well, yes, I love it. Great.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So at the heart of this system, there's three main branches, and each impacts how we relate to ourselves and others throughout life. So the sympathetic branch is our fight or flight branch. It is ruled by adrenaline, norepinephrine, and eventually cortisol. So this is activated in moments of perceived danger and gets us ready to either confront or flee from a threat. And humans are small animals, and don't come at me that you're 6 foot, you're way smaller than a rhino. We are much more primed to either try to make nice when life feels scary or book it out of there. So a lot of us have that like blight kind of experience in life because it's biological. Then there is the ventral vagal system, which supports social engagement. When our nervous system is in ventral vagal, we're open, we're safe, we're connected to ourselves, to our truth, and we're connected to the people around us. We're able to have intimacy, to have calm, to have grounded connections. Finally, there's the dorsal vagal branch, which is responsible for our immobilization reaction, which is when we feel deeply overwhelmed, when life feels like way too much. This part of the nervous system shuts us down. It drives us to freeze as a protective mechanism. And that's that like deer in the headlights, possum playing possum, like, oh my God, the world is too much, I cannot kind of moment. That's run by the dorsal system. And so these three branches are always active throughout our day, but I like to think of it, the sympathetic is like putting our foot on the gas and dorsal is a foot on the brake. And so our body's constantly scanning what's dangerous, got to slam on the brakes, or what's dangerous, I got to get out of here. And so initially I talked about how it responds to real danger, like actual lions. But these days, studies show that very few people in the US, in particular, that's just where the studies were done, are being chased by lions. Did you guys see these studies? very few people are being chased by
It
lions.
was shocking, actually.
It was shocking. And the NIH spent quite a bit of money on it, which I'm really glad for. And, but perceived danger is really what we're responding to. So legit, like walking through the mall and smelling your ex-mother-in-law's perfume.
Yeah. Wow.
Right? If she was meanie pants, your nervous system's like, what? Or like your own mom texting, or somebody not getting enough likes on your post on social media, if that's like where your business is or your social connection is. It can be these things that we don't even realize how small they are, but all of a sudden, poof, you're 8 years old and you're in this response where your parents weren't paying attention, or whatever it is that made you feel unsafe 30, 40, 50 years ago. And so when we talk about the nervous system being regulated, it means we're able to respond effectively and with the proper size response to life. You want some sympathetic activation. If you're going to cross the street in New York, you're going to get run over. Yeah. You need sympathetic activation. And if a taxi comes whirling across the corner, right, you need to be able to jump back. You want sympathetic activation. But when you get a text from your ex, you probably don't want to go into this spiral of adrenaline and feeling super activated and triggered in your nervous system. So the getting triggered is not dysregulated. Staying triggered is.
I like that.
Staying activated and not having the skills and capacity to come back into ventral vagal, which is the safe and social part of the nervous system.
So as a somatic life coach, how do you take these physical responses of the nervous system and use that to help people? Can you explain to people what that means to be a somatic life coach? So we have this nervous system that's reactive, not reacting, it's relaxing, it's on overdrive. Obviously, that's a big part of our mental well-being or not. So can you share with us how you go about helping people in this way and what it actually means to be a somatic life coach?
Yeah, with great joy. So the work I do is largely based in my training as a somatic experiencing practitioner, which is Peter Levine's work. It's a really specific process for working with what's called incomplete stress activation cycles. Those are the nerd words. And so let's back it way up. So on the great savanna of evolution, let's say you're being chased. Let's say you're a gazelle. Let's use the very classic example. You're a gazelle and you're being chased. You're very welcome. And you're being chased by a lion. Eventually, come on, math is math, physics is physics. The lion's going to catch you. And so when she grabs your ankle, what do you do as a gazelle? You collapse to the ground and your body goes into dorsal shutdown. Your heart rate slows. Your blood pressure goes down. You're flooded with endogenous endorphins, pain relief, because you've been bit by a lion. And you look dead. So that lioness is all proud of herself. She caught a gazelle. She's like, well, gazelle looks real dead to me. I'm going to go get my cubs. She walks off to get the cubs. You wait till the coast is clear. You stand up, you shake your whole darn body, and you book it out of there, right? So you have that moment where dorsal is met with enough sympathetic activation to bring you back to life, as it were, and then to save your life. Now, you're in the boardroom and your boss is yelling at you and you go into sympathetic activation. You want to scream back, but you know you'll lose your job. Then you'll lose your healthcare and then you'll lose the house. And then, oh my God, you're going to die cold and alone on a mountaintop. So what do? You shove all that sympathetic down. You go into dorsal, you shut down. And then the meeting's over. And what do? You go back to your desk and fill out a spreadsheet. Huh? But wait, we need to shake. We need to scream. We need to move. We need to complete that activation. There's a danger. Lion or boss. Body's like, it's same to me, right? I just work here. Activation, adrenaline, push it up, freak out, fight, flight, let's go. Socialization says absolutely not. And so you shove all that sympathetic activation down. And it ends up having nowhere to go. So where does it go? Sideways. Right? You're driving home with road rage. You take the subway home and you scream at your kids or the dog or the whomever, right? We're living these lives where our nervous systems aren't getting to complete our very basic mammalian functions. So in the work I do through the somatic experiencing process and a process I've come to of my own, where I combine somatics with thought work, with cognitive mindset work, we work to allow the body in the safe container of our coaching cohort to actually complete that stress cycle, to let the body in a safe way without hurting. No bosses were hurt in the making of this coaching, to actually release that pent up energy and to complete that stress activation cycle. So it's no longer taking up space in the body as something stifled, but rather is allowed to be felt all the way through. And then it doesn't have the same charge. And it's a truly incredible process where you then sort of look back on your boss screaming at you and you don't feel so activated about it, which means that you can actually go to HR and lodge a formal complaint, right? Or like do whatever else it is that you actually want to do, but not from that huge charge. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Okay, so step one is to build interoception, which is feeling your own needs in your body. So emotional outsourcing, which is the term I created for our codependent, perfectionist, and people-pleasing habits, all that socialization, all that conditioning pulls us so far away from ourselves and melds us and our nervous systems with the people around us, right? So this is that role confusion that happens when we're parentified children, when we're children who had to take care of everyone else and not ourselves. For so many people socialized as women in this moment in time, on and on, right? We take care of others instead of ourselves. And somatics provides this window and this really available, accessible set of modalities for us to come back into ourselves. Because before you can shift stuck behavior, you actually have to feel yourself and know yourself and experience what's going on in your own body as your own person, as a separate person, as a person who's worthy of being present with. So
it's really weird, Lori. Lori and I have talked about this. The same things are swirling around me all the time. I just read yesterday in a book, I'm reading about interoception. It's the first time I've ever even heard the word, and now you're saying it. So I'm like, Sarah, there's something you need here. Can you explain what that is again for me? Because I was attentive, but I couldn't get what that is.
Yeah. So it's feeling yourself. That's the quickie of it. Yeah. So ception. I'm so glad they made me take 100 years of Latin.
Yeah.
It's actually really helpful.
Etymology is amazing.
Thanks, classical. Public school all the way, man. So interoception and exteroception. So ception, knowing. So knowing of the inside and knowing of the outside.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
So cool, right?
Okay,
but
yeah,
we totally lose that.
yes.
Like clinically, I'd be like, okay, so how does it feel when you get a headache? And people would be like, oh, my head hurts.
My God.
I'm like, yeah, baby, but help me help you.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying we get so busy in the doing that we forget that the being is being with the being.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Right?
And is it true that sort of you talked earlier about suppression, in essence, internal suppression, like that if you didn't have the sideways outlet, let's just say if you chose not to have the road rage on the way home, or you chose not to are you then just suppressing so that you almost become numb within yourself? Does that happen?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So that speaks to, and I will also say, I don't think the road rage actually solves anything. Right.
Okay,
because it's not directly related to that stress activation cycle. And so it's just sort of like a sideways attempt at catharsis. But it doesn't actually change your life because your nervous system isn't oriented to the thing that messed you up.
Yep.
You're just screaming. You're not solving. Is that English?
Yeah. You're not screaming purposefully.
Right. You're just, just like, I am mad.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, you're just muppeting all over the place. I'm actually working on a piece called From Muppet to Sesame Street because I feel like that's the work we need.
Yeah.
Welcome. We're going to learn how to count 1, 2, 3.
Okay. I like that trajectory. I do.
Right?
Yes.
More
Yeah.
nerd, more better, and more silly, more better.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So when you are able to help your patients, and they're healthy, they're going to walk right into their boss's office after the meeting and say, I don't like the way you treated me.
Yeah. Or do it in the boardroom.
Mm-hmm.
Right there in front of everyone. Like,
Right.
hey, Mike, it's really inappropriate that you're raising your voice at me. And I'd like to invite everyone to take a breath right now. I understand that you're upset, but screaming at me is not appropriate. It's not acceptable. I won't tolerate it.
Right. And when we get there as human beings to respond to the person directly like that versus like, the road rage or going to HR or whatever,
Right.
it's like the direct communication. It affects our whole universe around us because now you're not bumping someone off the road or yelling at your kid or screaming at your spouse, right?
Right. Or taking it out on yourself. I mean, how many of us then get home and zone out on Instagram with the TV on while drinking wine? And I'm not demonizing any of those things, but I'm just saying. I'm just saying, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah.
Or ruminate. A lot of this is aligned with perfectionism, people, all of it. But or sort of get home and then just beat yourself up by ruminating over, swirl. What I do? Oh my God! All the stories we tell ourselves. Yeah.
Right. Which is that amygdala, that fear center in our hindbrain, just trying to make sense and trying to understand why we felt like a lion was having us for lunch when we're pretty sure we weren't lunched, but we were. Right.
Yeah.
So how, if you could give a little bit away for free, is
Always.
there anything that if you were, say, Sarah and I were talking to you about a problem here,
Yeah.
what would you, and our boss did this, what would be something that we could do to help ourselves immediately to
In the
begin
moment
the
of,
process? Right,
yeah.
just beginning the process of the somatic counseling.
Yeah. So you mean in the moment of being yelled at or post facto?
Post facto. Post
Okay.
facto. Yeah.
Yeah. So starting with interoception is really vital. So taking 3 slow breaths with a long, slow out and asking yourself, what am I feeling right now? And this is let me sort of situate this. The work to be able to respond in situ, in the moment, to some schmuck yelling at you has nothing to do with focusing on the schmuck yelling at you, right? The work really is backing it way up and learning how to be present in your body, in your daily life, in the not stressful moments. Right? We got to start where it's warm so we don't freak our nervous system out and slowly build that capacity to be present with self, to listen to self, to trust self around the absolutely banal, low stress, no stress things of life so that we can then start working on if it's a 0 to 10 of stressor, we can start working on being present with 1 out of 10 and then 2 out of 10. And if homeboy yelling at you is 10 out of 10, we're really going to do a lot of work to get present before we try to talk back to him. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
if not, you're just going to panic and right, and go into full dorsal anyway. So
right.
really slowing it down. And so what's a 0 out of 10 stressful thing? What are you going to have as your morning beverage? And this sounds so banal. And seriously, you went to school for 100 bajillion years for this, but stay with me. Starting to get to know ourselves again and to feel into our true desires, wants, and needs in our body is vital work, I'd say, for pretty much all of us. So, do you all ask yourself and your body what you want to drink when you first wake up?
I've learned to, actually.
You've learned to.
Recently, yes,
That's
recently.
amazing. So what has that created for you?
It has created just a better relationship with my body and knowing what my physical needs are
Amazing.
versus just a habitual thing.
Right.
So having a
Right.
glass of are you thirsty? Are you not thirsty?
Yeah.
Do you need to have a glass of water first? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for a few years, but I mean, that's it.
Well, no, but it's amazing. Bea, you've just given me another reason to explain to my husband and daughter why I have sardines for breakfast.
Ooh, because they're delicious.
Not kidding.
Yeah.
Lori's oh my gosh, because it is so odd. But I'm like,
You
I
need
just
some
want them.
salt? You're craving salt.
No, no. I don't know. I just
They're delicious.
I know.
Out of a Like out of a
Out of
can?
a can. I sure do.
Sounds great.
Great. Well, they're good for you.
Yeah.
They
So
don't have they don't have mercury because they're so little.
I know.
Right.
I know. But
Yeah.
I love that. That's beautiful. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
Well,
I know. The drink
no,
and
but
then the sardines.
the more you practice noticing yourself without judgment, the stronger your internal reference point becomes, which helps you to remember that who you are,
Mhm.
what you are, and that you are and can be again the center of your own friggin' universe. Because we forget that. All this dysregulation, all this emotional outsourcing, we become not the center of our own universe. And so when you become your own reference point, not reaching for Dunkin' because it's what you've always done, or like reaching for tea or whatever, you start to matter in these little ways that, and I start with a beverage or sardines because it's so not important.
Yeah.
And so it's so unlikely to trigger your nervous system into that fight or flight or that dorsal shutdown.
Mm. Okay, I have a question that is probably not related at all to
Ooh,
well, it's
fun.
related, but not. So when you start to sort of go to that space where you are feeling yourself, hearing yourself, and not only acknowledging it, but then acting,
Mm,
I think like potentially you begin to enter spaces differently, you begin to enter relationships differently, dynamics probably shift. Is that when sort of you say sometimes you can think that it's gone and then all of a sudden you're back in it? Like, so let's just say that someone that I'm going to eat sardines and that it doesn't. But let's just say that it bothers my entire family, and so they start getting really frustrated at me because I'm eating sardines. Right then, I've made a choice for myself. But is it in that moment that I then have to decide whether to go back to the old pattern or to stay strong within myself? Like, what does that look like for people at that juncture as they start to act?
I think is it John Bradshaw who calls those change back demands?
Uh,
I think it may be, but it's a really common thing. And I always warn people up front that when you stop people pleasing, people are not going to be pleased. I mean, makes sense, right? When
it does.
right? People love us when we're people pleasing them because their lives are easier because we're saying yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. And so I think it is really important to like do the somatic work, the body based work to stand really strong in what matters to us. And in that process of learning to be self referential again, learning to be your own guiding North Star, you know when to say, yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Sardines, whatever. It's not a biggie.
Mhm.
But because it has that like, meh, whatever energy actually in your body versus that grasping, do I self-abandon? Do I say yes? Do I let them rule, like that, like shoulders up by your ears?
Mm.
I don't want to say yes, but I'm going to say yes because you approving of me matters more than me approving of me. And so a huge part of this somatic body based work is about learning to feel your own cues and your own clues. So you know what changing from obligation feels like. You know what changing from people pleasing feels like. And you know what saying, oh, sure, whatever, I don't care.
Mm.
But because you actually don't care, not because you're shut down to you. Right.
Yes. A big
And
difference.
that's a
Mhm.
huge part of this work because we lose that.
Mhm. So once you do the so Sarah's family's pissed off at her because she's eating sardines and they think she's really weird. And she's like, I'm gonna stick to my guns. And she does like her 3 deep breaths and she sticks to her guns for the day. What's like the next step?
Okay, so what I was going to offer was retraining your nervous system to feel safe in boundaries. Does that answer what you're asking?
Sure. How do you do that? Like what
Right on.
how do you get there?
Yeah. I got 6 steps to get us there.
Yeah.
So
Great.
I'll frame this within saying that emotional outsourcing often makes boundaries feel so absolutely terrifying, like rejection, abandonment, actual unsafety and danger. And what's really vital for us to understand cognitively is that that is a nervous system imprint and it's a story that isn't necessarily reality. So I think it's really important in this work to both really focus on both the mindset and the soma. So here's the practice that I would walk someone through who is working on embodying their boundaries. So I'd start with orienting to our nervous system, to our environment. So orienting is one of the simplest. And again, it's one of those tools that sounds like so banal and so dumb, but is actually life-changing. So when we are activated in our nervous system, somebody texts and you're 18 again, that's because our nervous system and our mind, they're time travelers. And so they're always going back to the previous patterned coding of safety and danger. So again, you can be 45 and totally safe at your own house, but all of a sudden you're 8 years old again, or 18 again, or whenever time something stressful or traumatic happened. And so one of the first and easiest and most sort of tried and true ways to bring ourselves back into the here and now, to start regulating, but which is vital before we begin to set a boundary, is to orient the nervous system. So the way you'd when you start a new job and they orient you to, here's the kitchen, here's your desk, right? Just orienting. And you literally just look around. So let's do that together. So you just look around the space you're in. And the simplest, easiest, low fuss way to do it is just let your body take in your surroundings. And let your body remember, oh, I am a grown woman in my apartment that I pay for, right? This is my desk and my computer. I'm at home. I am safe enough in this moment. If your body's like, yeah, girl, I'm not really buying it, you can bring your prefrontal cortex, the executive function part of your brain, a little more online by engaging with patterns and math. And nobody get nervous. This is Sesame Street level counting. So I like to start with rectangles because rooms are full of them. If you're in nature, go with circles, but count the rectangles. Poster, photo, door, painting, computer, window, neighbor's window, neighbor's patio, right? And so you can just start to bring your the prefrontal cortex sort of gets, it doesn't go fully offline, but gets deprioritized when we're in an activated trigger in our nervous system, when we get dysregulated, which makes sense. If you're being chased by a lion, do you want to do calculus? I don't. Right? I want to run and punch.
I never want to do calculus.
Well, listen, that's a whole other story. We can get into that though, huh? But so just simple math, simple patterns, things like shapes, colors, or going through our senses. And this is also, just side note, a great tool to teach kiddos.
Yeah.
And can just be a beautiful thing. Remember, I was saying we don't start to regulate our nervous system by talking back to the boss. We start with a coffee. Having your kids when they're in a super happy, great mood, or you're in the car singing songs, be like, hey, babes, let's orient. How many circles can you see? Call out the circles. And start to make it this really facile, easy part of daily life. Mwah. Huge gift for everyone involved. Okay, so to retrain the nervous system to feel safe in boundaries, we start with orienting. Then we would stand with our feet firmly on the ground. And I'd recommend taking a moment to press your hands gently against a wall or a surface in front of you. If that's not available, you can push down on your desk. If that's not available, you can push against your own hands or push your hands on your thighs. Please don't hurt yourself. And however you're able to feel something pushing back against you, feel the boundary you have with the world. Solid, supportive, firm. Doesn't that feel amazing? Take a breath in, long, slow out, press a little firmer, and notice what happens in your body. So what are y'all noticing?
Slow down.
Slow down. Yeah.
Ease.
Grounding.
Yeah.
Grounding.
Yeah. And I feel this real safety in knowing that gravity works, right? And that the world is always both holding me up and holding me down in this way that I'm safe here in the middle. Yeah?
Yeah. It's beautiful.
And so this is the work we do alone at home, right? Or in a forest or in your car waiting for pickup. We practice feeling this and then naming a small boundary out loud. I need a moment to think before I give an answer. I cannot help with that today. Thank you. That doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. So these are limits, right? And we practice these limits when nobody's asking, when nobody cares, when it's just us. So our nervous system starts to create this new neural pathway that says, I can feel safe, solid, firm, oriented, grounded. Y'all brought in ease, right? Presence. And I can say these otherwise really scary words like, that doesn't work for me. And as you're saying it, push a little firmer. And know that the body learns best through experience. So feeling that physical containment helps your nervous system to rewire the story that boundaries equals danger, because here boundaries are the root of safety.
I really love that.
So do
I love the practice of creating the boundaries when they're not necessary.
Yes.
Because it's very, very difficult to do them in the moment when you're not used to doing that.
Right.
So that is actually something I have never heard before. And I love that. That's
so
very
glad.
powerful. I think that could be really powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, I do it with all of my clients. It's a really, it's pivotal, right? Because it reminds you that when we set boundaries and limits, it's not about no kind of nobody but ourselves. Yeah. My boundary has nothing to do with you.
Yep.
Nothing to do with you. It's not about
I just don't want to do your shit.
I don't want to do your shit. Thank you. But I gave it the office and we're done. We're done for today. We hit our limit. No, thank you.
So, if you could, having all of your knowledge, your 20 years in health and wellness, all that you've experienced and through patients and through your own life, if you could whisper one thing into the ear of the people out there who are overworked, burnt out, disconnected, what would you say?
That coming home to yourself is one of the most important thing we can do, and reclaiming our connection with our bodies, right? Because we just get so disconnected from the body as self in the process of getting burnt out. And the more we can take a real grounded seat in self, we can show up to everything with more intention, with more care, with more presence, which makes our emotional and intimate relationships, our interpersonal relationships, our relationship with self, everything becomes so much richer, and it's that social engagement leaning into the ventral vagal state in the autonomic nervous system that helps us to downregulate all the stress in our bodies and really is the antidote to burnout.
That's beautiful. I needed you. I needed you 10 years ago.
It's good timing.
No, it's amazing. I mean, it really is. I so grateful to you for this work and for sort of through this conversation, you've helped to give us insight for sure, but also helped to explain some things that I didn't totally understand. Like when I think about the nervous system and its connection in the body physically and emotionally, it's no wonder we sort of are in the states that we're often in. So thank you for that. And thank you for teaching me as much as you have today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for receiving it. It's really the most vital work.
Awesome. Thanks for the work you do. It's making the world a better place, one person at a time, or group at a time, I should say.
Exactly.
Likewise,
and just a reminder to our listeners that they can find you at the Feminist Wellness Podcast and to also check out your book at the end of September and Emotional Outsourcing. We can't wait for it. And Bea, thanks so much for being our guest today.
My pleasure. And I have a surprise gift for your listeners.
Oh my gosh.
We love presents.
Yes.
So if they head on over to Beatriz, Beatriz Albina, ALB as in bunnies, INA.com/collecting insight. You can download a suite of free meditations, inner child guides, nervous system orienting exercise, all sorts of little treats just for saying thank you for listening to this phenomenal show all the way through.
That's amazing. Thank you.
That's
my pleasure. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that.
Truly a pleasure.
Appreciate your time coming on and all of your expertise.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Huge thank you to our listeners for joining us. Lori, as always, thank you. And we will see everyone next time.
Yes.
All right.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.